All right, MYB community. Thank you so much for coming back. This is your host, Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast. We're here at episode number 170. Man, we just keep moving this thing around, man. Episode 170. And who would have knew? A guy that teacher once told him and his mom that he was tongue-tied and would never be able to speak like the other kids or do things like or learn like the other kids or do things like the other kids. And here I am. So somebody find that teacher and I need to get her as a guest on my show. Yeah, episode 170 here, recording this on July the 7th. So 7/7/2020. So excited for you to be here. Listen, subscribe, 5-star, wherever you get your podcast, on Apple or wherever. That helps us to continue to connect. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. I'm excited today for today's guest because we get to talk about a topic that I think is extremely relevant to everybody in terms of whether you're operating personally or professionally. And I've got my guy here, Andy Seth. He's the CEO of Flow Marketing. And we're going to get into several topics. We'll learn about his company. We'll learn about his background. And we're going to get into some fun things as well. But Andy, listen, I know you're extremely busy, man. Thank you so much for taking time out to be here on the Minding Your Business podcast.
No, man, it's not like that at all. This is an honor for me. So I'm appreciative of you letting me be on the show.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. So let's get into it. Who's Andy Seth, man? Who the hell are you? Where you come from? Are you from Krypton? Or? Yeah, I was going to say.
You got it. All right, first thing I got to say is, for those of you listening right now, I'm telling you right now, if you're working out or if you've got me on in the car, wherever you are, I'm telling you in the next 30 minutes or however long we go, I'm going to drop as much wisdom as possible. You got to understand where I come from is like a lot of people that don't get represented in these podcast shows. I come from a background. I grew up in LA. I'm the son of two Indian immigrants.
Yeah.
I grew up in a motel in LA from the age of 0 till 14.
Wow.
Okay. So I don't have the the behind the scenes. I got some parents that have been doing some stuff for me, or like I got generational wealth. No. So the stuff I'm going to tell you comes from my school of hard knocks. It comes from my school of, hey, I've figured some things out, and there's a bunch of stuff I didn't figure out too.
Love it.
But the stuff that I figured out, and there's a game that's being played that a lot of people don't talk about. We're going to talk about that. So just be ready for what's about to come out of my mouth, because I'm telling you, like, I feel this audience. That's why I wanted to be on this show.
Awesome. I love it, man. Let's do it.
All right. So a little bit about me. So I like I said, I grew up in LA in a motel. We didn't own it despite being Indian, and I could have fit the stereotype and be like, yeah, we owned it. Actually, I used to lie about it, to be honest with you. Things I used to lie about when I was a kid.
That's your story. You're sticking with it.
Yeah. Things I used to lie about. One was that we owned the motel. We did not. We lived in a family of 4. I have a younger sister. We lived in a motel room. Second thing we used to lie about was we used to use my uncle's address so I could go to a better school. True story. Now, I know people still do that.
Of course.
I know that's a thing. Right.
Of course.
Okay. But a lot of people don't know about that.
Right.
Right. But those of us that had to, we know. Okay.
No doubt about it.
So just, if you are feeling me so far, like, stick around on this. So here's how the story kind of starts to evolve. As I'm growing up in this motel, my parents tell me, basically, like, you got to get an education. Right. And my parents are educated, by the way. Both of them have master's degrees. They came from India, and those master's degrees weren't worth anything. That's kind of a weird thing about America. Oh, there's a lot of weird things about America. But one of the weird things about America
right.
is, for some reason, foreigners' degrees don't get respect here.
Wow.
It's a trip to me because
that's interesting.
Some of the brightest people come from abroad, right?
Right.
Like, the brightest people come from abroad and, like, try to make it in America, but, like, America doesn't respect their degrees. So it's a weird thing. My own wife is from India, and she's got an MBA, and she had to reskill.
Wow.
So it's a weird thing. Anyhow, so my folks were basically like, look, you got to get an education because that's the way out. And, education's always the way out of poverty, if you will.
Sure.
There were 2 things, though, that started happening for me in parallel. One was education, and the second was entrepreneurship. So I feel like that's really why it's important for me to go on shows and talk about both. I kind of am not in the camp of people that say, like, you know what, college isn't worth shit. Like you didn't need to go. Like I don't actually agree with you. Like statistically, the data doesn't agree with you. So I don't really need to have an opinion on this. It's
Right.
not that having a college degree leads you to make a lot of money. It's that if you don't have a college degree, the job options suck.
Right.
That's actually the reality. It's not that college makes you that much smarter. It's just that it became one of those requirements in this country. So I definitely think education is important to
Yeah.
some extent, but I
Sure.
don't think college is for everyone either. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how my belief systems have like turned into what I do now for a living.
Yeah.
Okay. So my first educational stint was I earned a full scholarship to a school called Culver Military Academy in Indiana. Culver Military has hundreds of millions of dollars in endowments. It is one of the most prestigious high schools in the nation. People like George Steinbrenner went there, who used to own the Yankees.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah, Ross Perot, like just really, really wealthy tycoons went to this school. And they had this concept where they believed if they gave a low income kid from the inner city a chance, he or she might actually make something of it. And I was one of those kids. I was the concept, right?
Right.
And it turned out I made full use of it and did really well in that school. Then I went on to earn a full scholarship to Boston College. And so in my life, I've earned over $250,000 worth of scholarships. But education alone wasn't it. I mean, education was for sure, it was for sure going to give me a minimum type of a lifestyle.
Sure.
But entrepreneurship is what gave me the extra, right? And so my first business I started when I was 13. And when I say business, I mean like legit business. Like I filed taxes. You know what I mean? Before that, it was like hustle, street hustle. Like I used to
Right.
dumpster dive and cut up these stickers. There was a sticker factory near my house. It was actually
Yeah.
a printing factory, a commercial printer, but they had these stickers. And I would dumpster dive, pick out stickers, cut them up, and sell them at school. It was a quarter each or 5 for $1. And so that was my first hustle. I used that to buy a bike. I used that bike to then get a paper route. So when I was 10, I had a paper route with the bike that I had bought, and et cetera. But none of those things were like, they weren't official. They were just kind of like off the books, right?
Yeah.
Like little beat nuts. I wish I had like turntables here where I could just like throw in music when I was just like saying something.
Right.
So that path of entrepreneurship when I was 13, when I started to go legit, was as the DJ. I started off DJing from 13 till 22. So this wasn't just like a small, like, oh yeah, I'll do some house parties. That's how it started.
Yeah.
But I ended up, by the time I was 18, headlining 6 nights a week in Boston at clubs, promoting those same clubs, getting a cut of the door. You know,
Wow.
it became my actual business.
legit.
And so from there, then I started to build these other businesses, and we can talk as much or as little as you want about any of those things. But I wanted to just make sure that people know I'm not, my own story isn't one or the other. It's not just education. It's not just entrepreneurship. And I'm going to throw a third one in here because I feel like it's just as important, but usually people don't want to talk about it. And for me, it's spirituality.
Yeah.
So while I had, great opportunities and I made good use of them, I worked hard and all that stuff, I also know that I've got a lot of gifts.
Yeah.
And those blessings were ones that I had to look at and say like, hey, are you going to capitalize on these or are you just going to let them go?
Right.
So, but the gifts came, and one of the gifts I know in life is I'm always taken care of. Like I'm not the richest guy out there. I've done well financially. But I think that's just like, okay, I mean, I'm not on the cover of Forbes, nor do I care to be, but
Right.
but I'm saying this because like there are some gifts, like I can always be content and happy and at peace with what I do have. And at the same time, I'm ambitious as fuck.
Yeah.
So I'm not sitting here trying to sit back, but I'm also not in pain or suffering because I'm comfortable with exactly where I am. Because I always know like I get taken care of. Like I believe that this universe has helped me do some things in life that are special and will continue to happen. So if I were to give people my 3-pronged kind of story, it's education, entrepreneurship, and spirituality.
Yeah, no doubt. And Andy, let's unpack those 3 a little bit. Yeah, particularly as your pathway to flow marketing. So you talked about education, you talked about everything kind of across the gamut, entrepreneurship, and then of course spirituality. Tie those three into how that pathway led to flow marketing.
Yeah. So in late 2015, I started going under basically an acquisition process for my wealth management firm. I had built up a company from zero to $100 million in assets that we were managing, and it was time for me to like basically go take some chips off the table, make a lot of money, and be done
Yeah,
with that business.
there you go.
So yeah, so I sold it at the end of 15. Had to be retained for another quarter there, and afterwards I basically just like chilled out. It was my fourth exit. It's the most amount of money and time I've ever had, and so I traveled with the family, did all the things, and then I kind of was like, man, like what are you gonna do now, dude? Like
Yeah,
this is a new problem, right? This is a new
right,
problem.
right,
Before it was always like, how am I going to flip this dollar? Now it was like,
exactly.
what do I do? And so over the course of my career, I've helped over 1,000 low-income kids just like me go to college on scholarships. I have a nonprofit called Minds Matter that I've led for many years. Also, my work through KIPP schools, KIPP.
Yeah, we have that
And
here.
so I've helped a lot of kids just like me get opportunities. That's kind of like the mission. So when it came time to figure out like what's next, when I was conceiving of what would flow even be, I didn't have a name or anything, right?
Yeah,
The questions became really hard. Like, what are the skills you want to use? What are you passionate about? Like, how do you bring all this together? It was really hard for me to answer. I didn't know what was next. I had done so many things and all that stuff. But then I read this book called Bold by Peter Diamandis. And inside that book, he says, if you want to become a billionaire, solve a billion person problem. And it triggered a question to me, which was not that I was necessarily looking to be a billionaire, but the question was like, so what problem do you want to solve?
right.
And I was like, you know what problem I've not solved or even worked on? I've helped a lot of low income kids go to college, but what about the ones that don't go to college? I have nothing in my like portfolio of giving
Yeah,
that addresses this need. And there's a way bigger population of people that are low income not going to college than there are low income going to college, or
sure.
low income went to college and didn't finish college, which
Right.
is even
Yes, even big thing.
most of
Yeah,
them, right?
right.
So that was really the problem. That was the genesis of Flow, was how do I help low income kids have careers that break poverty without having a college degree? That was the problem I was wrestling with.
Yeah,
And I tested out a lot of models, came up with a model out of Switzerland. The Swiss have these apprenticeships, and apprenticeships are kind of like an old school term that are really related to like blue collar jobs. But
yeah.
you can make an apprenticeship in white collar jobs too. The Swiss use it for banking. That's why their banking system's so
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm
like
very
world
familiar with
famous.
that. With that
Yeah,
model.
you are. And so I looked at it and I was like, well, I've hired how many people in marketing over the years? I didn't care what anyone's doing. I don't even know whether they had a degree, whether or not they went to college, irrelevant. But in wealth management, in money, like people look at your degrees. They look at the
Right.
pedigree and all that kind of
Of
thing.
course.
So,
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
right. So then I started thinking about it and I was like, what if I created an apprenticeship that taught kids how to do, low income kids, 18 to 24 years old. So they're kind of in that, like, they're working full time, but they don't have their whole career set.
Right.
Could I teach them, digital marketing? And that seemed like, wow, that's kind of a cool idea. How do I make money doing that? Or how do I fund this? Or is this a nonprofit? And I was like, I don't want to do another nonprofit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, and I bet you a lot of your listeners vibe with this. I wanted to help, but I also need to make sure that like me and my family were still taken care of.
Right.
That's a really important thing.
Still got to put food on the table. Yeah.
Yeah. And like at that point we were past the food, but
Yeah.
we got college educations. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah. Yeah. You got that
we got
next
like
step of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got some big dreams and stuff. So I just couldn't be sacrificing those ambitions to help others. And so I was like, this has got to be a for-profit. And so I tested out a bunch of different models and came up with a niche that I thought was in the marketplace. And that was basically US based customer support, right? Live chat,
Sure.
texting, email. Now there's all over the world, there's customer support. Even in the US, there's customer support. But
Right.
most of the US customer support is focused on like stay at home people. A
Yeah.
lot of times it's stay at home parents. But but nobody was tapping this low income, not in college, barely have a job, high skill, high aptitude, and highly motivated. There's a ton of kids that are driven. They just don't have the shot.
So, Andy, how did that tie into real quick with like what you hear about like virtual assistants? So separate that for me because I see kind of a little bit of two different lanes in your model to like the virtual assistant model.
Yeah. So a virtual assistant does a large laundry list of tasks for someone,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I was creating something very process oriented.
Yeah.
So
More
I started
niche.
with just live chat,
Yeah.
right? Started with just live chat, and I taught our agents how to sell on live chat. So instead of being customer support, I was like, hey, if you can engage visitors on websites and turn them into appointments or leads or sales for e-commerce, then we're making revenue for our clients. We'll never get fired.
Right.
But when you're an expense,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
right?
You're a
And
line item.
and a virtual assistant most of the time is an expense.
It's a line item. Right.
Yeah, it's a line
Exactly.
item,
So,
right? So I was like, let's tie to revenue because you
yeah.
can't get rid of us then.
Right.
And so we started off with that, and that proved to be really successful, really, really successful, and was changing the lives of people who weren't otherwise given a chance. And so I've got this huge untapped labor pool that
Yeah.
nobody's looking at, not the way I'm looking at them.
Right.
And so that's the genesis of Flow, is we created what started off as a live chat agency, expanded into customer support, now also does content marketing, branding. I have very high level professionals, that are crazy skilled, way more skilled in those areas than me.
Yeah.
I have two apprentices who have graduated. One is now a systems analyst. She builds out a lot of our different technologies and platforms. And the second one leads our live chat division. And
Wow.
they're both making over 40K, no college degrees. Both of them are actually under 21. No, one's 21 now. And they've got career paths with us. So,
Yeah.
and they got career paths in the market. If they left me, they got a path somewhere else too, and they'll continue to make money, and they never had to go to college. And I felt
Right.
like I solved something at a small level, and now I'm trying to take this to make it a lot bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andy, as you build this apprenticeship, how do you come across these young people? Do you have some pathway connection to high schools and kind of K through
Yeah,
12, or are you just kind of scouring social media looking for who you kind of can come
bro.
across? Yeah, kind of
All right.
unpack that for me.
Can I just tell you, I'm so tired of. I'm just gonna like.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be
please.
frank about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of talk right now about diversity and inclusion.
Of course.
Prior to the Black Lives Matter movement, it was the Me Too movement. So there was a lot of talk about gender equity.
Right.
64% of my staff are female. 43% of my staff are people of color.
Yeah.
Okay? That's diverse as shit.
Yeah.
And you know how hard that was? Not hard at all.
Of course
You
not.
know why? Because I
'Cause-
actually value diversity. I don't have to fake the funk. I don't
right.
try to figure it out. So when you ask, how do you find these people?
Yeah.
How do you find these kids? They're not people of color necessarily. They're not even women necessarily. They're low income
Yeah.
necessarily, right? At first, I had to tap into my nonprofit network. I've
Sure.
been in this game for like 20 years, bro.
Man.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not just new to the block where I'm
Right.
putting up the black square on Insta. Like,
Right.
welcome to the game, everybody
Right.
else.
Right.
Okay? So
You're not like on
cool.
Twitter, the little egg or whatever when you
Yeah,
first set
like
up Twitter.
right, okay, welcome.
Right.
It's nice of you to join the fight.
Right.
I've been
Exactly.
in this game. So my network to reach out to people was already diverse, was
Right.
already inclusive. So I went to the nonprofits that I had and I said, let's look at the alumni and the siblings of alumni who are, they're by definition, the nonprofits I work with are working with low income youth
Yeah.
who didn't finish college or who didn't go. Send them my way, send them my job description. Because what was happening, my job descriptions weren't getting hits. They sounded fake. Imagine this. You're getting paid for a full-time job. I'm also paying you to go to classes. And as you acquire a skill, I'm going to pay you more when you demonstrate that skill. And in 2 years, you're going to make 40K or more. Sounds like a scam.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I can see that.
So people weren't applying.
Right.
So I went to my nonprofit network and I was just like, hey, I got this thing and it's me. And they were like, oh, psh, phone call, phone call, phone call. Boom. They started sending me people. Now you know what happens? This is a trip. Each position that we have open gets over 5,000 applicants. Here's what I found out.
Yeah.
Once we legitimize this,
Sure.
there's people who like their influence, like they have YouTube audiences or Instagram audiences, is just to show people work from home jobs that are dope. My
Yeah.
whole company is work from home, always has been. Not this COVID, like not just during COVID, always has been work from home.
Right.
And so those influencers catch a hold of my job and are like, hey, yeah, you could do this somewhere else, live chat. You could do that plenty of places, but these guys are going to put you through like a whole education and guarantee that you're going to make 40K or more if you finish this program in 2 years. Guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Like the amount of people that come and apply is bananas.
Well, huge value, huge incentive. I mean,
Huge.
yeah.
Huge. And so when I look at this, I'm like, that's how foolish employers are. They don't even look at people with that kind of potential because they say dumb shit like 2 years minimum experience required. You know why they say that? Because they're fucking lazy.
Right.
That's why they say that. They're lazy because they don't want to train that. But dude, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? What's to train? You know how easy that is to train? And you know, like being blunt, if I'm paying somebody $12 an hour, I'm making 20 off of them, no problem.
Sure.
All right. So if I have to pay for a little bit of education and that averages out to 15 an hour, 16 an hour, I still got my spread, man. And as they're acquiring more skills, now they're not worth 20 an hour. Now they're worth 25 an hour to me.
Right.
Like, don't be dumb.
Yeah.
Right? Like you put that bullet point 2 years minimum experience required because you're lazy.
Yeah.
And your business can't handle that kind of training. Like you don't have that either the skill to do it, you don't have the desire, whatever it is. But that's why a lot of people suffer in business because they try to take these like shortcuts.
Right.
They're known as heuristics in behavioral economics. And one heuristic is that one damn bullet point, 2 year minimum experience required. I never hire on education or experience, ever. Every one of my job descriptions is skills based.
Yeah.
Every one. So it opens up the market. So if somebody looks at it and says, I've never done that before, but I got these skills from this other thing.
Right.
Come on in and apply.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guess what happens?
So let's
You
walk
get more
through
diversity.
exactly. And so that's the thing. So you're not into the, like you see now, and I've talked about this on the podcast, Andy, is kind of the pandering that's going on towards, black and brown people where, all of a sudden everybody's jumping up with their statements and we're going to create a diversity department and all that type of thing. And it's not really part of their culture. They're just kind of bullshitting around.
Right.
A better term. And so again, you're just pandering to the situation. Whereas when you build it truly as your culture, you don't have to jack around with it at all because it's just natural to you,
It's
no
just,
matter what the environment's doing. And so walk me through a scenario. So I'll use myself. I'm 18 years old. All right. I've just graduated high school. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. Right. I don't think college is for me. I come across one of your job descriptions. I say, oh shit, let me call Andy and his team. You interview me, right? You like what I bring to the table. I've got passion. I've got spunk. I want to do it. I say, Andy, I want this. I want to do this, right? And then you start me off with, walk me through what I would go through. Let's just say if I'm starting in live chat, okay? I'm intrigued by that. I say, hey, I want to be able to work through your live chat channel. Is a company come to you and then you're handling that on their e-commerce, and so you would put Ron in, plug him in one of those slots, start developing him to, like you say, be able to sell and handle customer support, and then I kind of, if I show aptitude and skill, then I continue to develop, and what you described then kind of happens for me. Is that
Yeah, a little bit along those lines. So
okay?
we have a whole, obviously, like we have sales that brings in clients.
Sure.
So there's kind of as long as we're doing our job on sales, there's an endless need to recruit agents.
Yeah.
Okay. And as there's an endless need of recruiting agents for our live chat, text, and email support functions, we also have that content and branding, which is like the higher level in terms of like it costs more, and people who do content marketing earn more than an agent.
Sure.
right? So just to give you comparison, an agent might be somewhere between 12 and 15 an hour. A
Yeah.
content marketer is probably between 25 and 30 an hour. So
Sure.
it's double,
Yeah.
right? It's double.
That makes sense.
So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we'll recruit this apprentice. They're going to be put onto live chat or email or text, whichever the customers, that we've sold, whatever the services are. But
Yeah.
we'll train them in that. So now for 40 hours, they're doing agent work, like any other agent job. Okay?
Sure.
Now, on top of that, they have a 2-year self-paced curriculum where every quarter they have to hit certain milestones. So they can accelerate if they want, but they can't be slower than the 2 years.
Gotcha.
Right? You can finish it in 1 year if you're capable,
Yeah.
but you can't take longer than 2.
Gotcha.
And so there's a curriculum. They also get a mentor where every week the apprentice meets with their mentor, different than their boss. An apprenticeship program has to have a mentor that's different than the boss. The boss is responsible for performance. The mentor is there to guide them.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really important
That
component
makes
of
sense.
this. So now there's a specific curriculum, and it's all online, and that curriculum is teaching them, for us, content marketing. Our goal is at the end of 2 years that they can become a content marketer, which in our business earns that $25 an hour.
Sure.
Full time, by the way. I'm just giving you hourly rates, but all my positions are full time.
Yeah.
So now they're full time making that. Along the way, as an agent, they might learn, let's say they do a course on Google Analytics.
Okay.
Okay, so now they've done a course. That doesn't mean they know how to do it. That just means they know what in theory it does.
Sure.
So now we have to give them work for our content clients that say, hey, can you run reports for this content and show us these things for them on a monthly basis so they can take the theory and put their hands
Make it
on it.
applicable. Yes.
Yes, that's where most people miss.
That's where it gets missed. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like you talked about lazy ass companies with lazy ass CEOs because they don't believe in training and development for themselves. So then they can't pass that down. And so I see that pathway clear now.
Yeah, and it's probably a 1-to-20 ratio, meaning for every 1 hour of classroom, we're actually putting their hands on it for like 20 hours. Because classroom theory is just to get your synapses to fire and understand the concept. But to do the work, you got to do the work.
Exactly.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we just make sure that you're doing the work, but somebody else is checking it because you're not quite yet acquired the skill. You haven't yet acquired the skill. Once you've demonstrated that you've acquired this particular skill and there's milestones along the 2 years, we bump up pay. Why? Because let's just take reporting, for example, and using Google Analytics.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do that job. Either I'm paying my really expensive staff to do that, or I have a choice of paying somebody expensive, who's more expensive than an agent, offshoring it to somebody who's really cheap but has nothing to do with my business, really, virtual assistant, for example.
Right.
Or I keep it in-house, but I give it to one of my apprentices. Well, yeah, does it cost me a little more than offshoring it? Sure. But you know how much more money I make off of them? I don't make that much money off of a virtual assistant. They're just a line item expense to me.
Exactly.
Off of these folks, if I can build that skill up, hey, they become even more marketable. So when I have future content needs, or like I told you, I have these 2 apprentices, my chat team grew large enough that we needed a team lead.
Yeah.
Well,
there
who
you
do you think's going to get promoted into that team lead?
So that allows you then, Andy, to want a couple things. One, it allows you to kind of develop your own, kind of almost farm system.
Yeah,
sort of speak.
for sure.
You think about like in sports, like baseball, basketball, football. You kind of have your farm system of you get a chance to evaluate talent, groom that talent, invest in that talent, and then I love what you said earlier. That talent then has opportunities to continue to develop with your company and your organization, or if they get opportunities to go out and branch out, you're still supporting that because you've got this pipeline that's coming through. And so, again, that's different than what most organizations do. Most organizations, what they do is wait for you to train the talent, and then I'm willing to uppay to get them. And I just go through that cycle. But I think what's going to happen in the future, and we'll get to this in a second, is as we go through these pandemics that we're fighting, right, and whatever reality looks like on the other side, companies that aren't agile like that, companies that aren't invested in training and development, companies that don't have the type of culture like you're describing, Andy, man, they're gonna get eaten alive. I mean,
yeah, of course,
there's no way.
And just fundamentally, they cost too much money for what they deliver.
Yeah.
See, if I'm doing what I'm doing with, a talent pool that's very, let's say, highly ambitious, untapped, right? No
Yeah.
one's looking at them.
Right.
I'm getting them for a fairly low price,
Sure.
right? Like I said, somewhere between 12 and 15 an hour.
Of
Okay,
course.
so that's a
Of
fairly
course.
low price, but that's a good job if you're out of high school and don't have a college degree and like it's not blue collar, right? You don't have to learn how to code. Like
Right.
everyone thinks coding is the holy grail of, yeah,
Right.
right. So what happens is for my customers, when they
Yeah.
hire us to do live chat or email support for somebody that has an e-commerce shop and they're like, hey, I don't want to build a customer service team in-house. I want to outsource that. They come to us. We're super affordable with crazy good results
Right.
because I've got a lower cost staff in total than my competitors. My competitors either went really low cost abroad
Right.
and they can't compete with us on results
That was exactly.
straight up. We make more money for our clients than they can. Or they hire domestically, but they overpay. So who's paying for that overpayment? The
The
customer.
customer. Right.
Right. And so if you put my price up against any of my domestic competitors, which is probably the more fair comparison, we're lower price
Yeah.
with better results because I train my team for a long-term end. Most agents have contractor jobs. All mine are W-2 employees
Yeah.
with bennies. So who do you think's retaining those people longer?
Right.
For
Yeah.
a client, that means your agent stays on your account longer.
Yeah.
You're not constantly turning them over. And if you're not turning them
Exactly.
over, you got better knowledge. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's why we can do better. It's a long game, but most people want to play the short game.
Yeah. Very true. Most people do. And then most people, again, just don't have the tenacity and the vision to be able to do what you're doing. And, to me, it comes off, and I'm thinking about this. And I'm someone, again, I was a 17-year banker. I was up to the C-suite in my last role before doing what I'm doing now in bank consulting, Andy. Where I'm compelling community banks to invest in low to moderate income communities, and so that's why I have a big
Oh,
connection
interesting.
with this because
Uh-huh.
I went from a guy that, in my opinion, I provided conveniences for people who already had them as a banker, right?
Sure.
To now compelling those same banks to make sure that on this side of the track they're investing the same way as this other side of the track. And like you, I came up very humble beginnings, man, here in Memphis. And there's something about people like that you're recruiting. One part that you didn't mention was these kids tend to be highly motivated. They have a lot of passion. They may have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, like no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm kind of the forgotten. You know what I mean? It's not the big
Yeah.
sexy. I'm not going to Harvard.
Right.
I don't have all these friends and family that are sitting around rooting for me and all that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
like yourself, you kind of have to crawl out of the mud and make it happen. And so it leads me to this. Where where do you see the future of what you're doing in this company? Because I think the innovation, it's not so much innovation tech wise. So like you said, everybody wants to get into coding and blah, blah, blah. It's big and sexy, right? But I think you've innovated in terms of mindset, which I think is going to be critical to business going forward. And so I say that NYB, and I'm asking Andy this because I think we should all listen to this conversation of the innovation of the mind and mindset and process, as opposed to just solely thinking of innovation as a hardware or software. That's important. Everybody would love to be Elon Musk and sit around with Tesla and
That would
and
be
with
nice.
Amazon and that sort of thing. But I think the innovation of mindset is critical. And so that's where I kind of think of you when you're sharing that with me, Andy. Where do you see the next step with this? Because as you go along and you've got this you almost pipeline of graduates, right? I mean, like any university, you're soon going to have this alumni, right? You
Yeah.
don't already, and what happens? So go back to my example. What happens with 18-year-old Ron that wakes up one day and he's 30 years old, right? And he's been through your program for the last 12 years of his life. Great. He's made money. He's developed his skill sets. well, yeah, what do you envision for someone like him or someone else that would come through your program? And I guess I say that, do they become entrepreneurs? Do they become vendors of yours, so to
Yeah.
speak, where you're working together, or do they continue to work in your organization? I mean, what do you see?
So for us, when I created Flow, the company, right, Flow Marketing, and there was a big vision around creating a conglomerate. A
Yeah,
conglomerate is a very foreign model. There used to be conglomerates in the United States, but they got broken up mostly because the stock market doesn't value conglomerates as much as they value very niche businesses.
yeah,
But in foreign countries, and there's some great case studies out there. Tata is a great example out of
yeah,
India. Virgin is a great example out of the UK.
yeah,
GE was a great example
yeah.
actually
That's
out
what I
of
say.
here in the
Yeah,
United States, right? So
yeah,
so my vision for Flow is to create a conglomerate where we use the Flow brand and we open up new businesses under that Flow brand. So this first business, Flow Marketing, I've got till the end of this year to fully staff it where I'm no longer operational in that business.
sure.
I've done that 4 times now, so I've got a pretty good process for doing so. So once this is at a point where my leadership team is fully operational without me, then that gives me the freedom to look at what's the next business we need to open under the Flow brand. And for me, this satisfies my entrepreneurial urges of not wanting to only be in one business.
Yeah,
But one mistake I've made in the past is none of my businesses had anything to do with each other. So while I might have a
yeah,
wealth management company and I have an MMA gym and I have a procurement, like none of them had anything to do. Now they all will. And so what I'll look at is I'll look at my expenditures and I'll look and see where do I spend a lot of money and could I open that as a business just by hiring one person in-house or one or two people in-house? Could my expenditures with a third party fund that? And if I got any new clients, that would be profit.
yeah.
So one of the things that I used to spend a lot of money on, not right now, was events. And
Hmm.
so events all need marketing. I personally throw a lot of galas and events and whatnot.
Okay.
So for the amount that I spend on events, I could hire two people, one apprentice, one person who's been around the block, who has the skills developed already, put the two of them together and say, run all my events. Now they're getting paid instead of a third party getting paid. And that apprentice is in what I call an intrapreneurship, right? So I think it's way smarter for most people to not branch out on their own as entrepreneurs, but rather first to learn from entrepreneurs.
Right.
Go under someone else's dime, learn from them, and then if you choose, you can become an entrepreneur. Or entrepreneurs like me value the heck out of people who want to stay with me, but get entrepreneurial latitude. So
Yes.
you have unlimited upside in income, but you've got the resources behind you, like from Flow. And this is what conglomerates did really, really well.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking to sell this business and flip it. This is a business that I'm looking to create a portfolio of companies and give people those opportunities. So if they've come up through my apprenticeship program, now they can go into like become an entrepreneur. I want them to stay with Flow. And if they had an idea, if they were like, Andy, you know what, I'm kind of like, I'm done with what we're doing, but they're a high talent,
Yeah.
I would say like pitch me.
Yeah.
Give me your
There you go.
idea. I don't want you to leave because you're dope.
Right.
But like I got resources and you don't want to go fundraise. You don't want to go to a bank to get loans if you don't have to.
Exactly.
So like how can we do this as a family in home? How do we grow you and we'll participate together, but we'll expand into the next Flow business?
Yeah.
That to me is the future of how we'll grow.
Yeah, and that's along the lines of because I was in the banking side and also in the credit union industry. In the credit union industry, they call that a QSIP, right? So
A
it's
QSIP?
yeah, they call that a
Oh,
Q.
like a QSIP code?
Yeah, and so basically what that is what you just described is a credit union because they're limited on resources, right? They're not Bank of America or Wells Fargo, right, where they've got all this unlimited untapped resource. So because they're limited on resources and they're limited on their ability to attract talent, going to what you're talking about, they may not have the knowledge or the skill set to attract talent the way that you have. Because they have that limitation, what they do is they encourage someone to develop it in house. So, like if I've got a core operating system, right? For me to go out and buy a core operating system costs me thousands of dollars. Well, if I'm a $200 million credit union in asset size, Andy, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford
Right.
the price tag's one thing. I can't afford to train all the staff. I can't afford if it fucks up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've got
Yeah.
your money in there, my money, and everybody else's, and
Right.
you're not. There's no excuse in the world that they can give as to why your money's not there, right?
Yeah.
There's no good excuse, right?
Yeah.
And so they can't screw that up. And so what they'll do is they'll take, say someone like me and you, we're working in the credit union. They'll take, we'll pitch an idea and say, hey, we want to build the core processing system in house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the knowledge, and we can save money where it might cost you 100,000. If we do it, it only costs you 60, right? And so what they do is you and I, we become, co-founders and presidents of this company. It's a QSIP. It's under the umbrella of the credit union, and the
Ah.
credit union uses our core processor. Here's what happens is it works good for the credit union. They're singing our praises. The guy down the street or the girl down the street says, what core processor are you using? We built ours in-house. Can we use it? Sure you can. We'll license it to you, white label it.
Right.
Ron and Andy make the money.
Right.
The credit union takes a percentage, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the guy on the other coast says, hey, we're hearing about you guys using this core processor that's saving all this time and money and blah, blah, blah. How much is it? We got to have it. No excuses. I don't care how much it costs. Send it to,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now we've got this company. We've got the benefit of the credit union's resources and reputation, branding, all that type of thing. But then, like you say, we're still entrepreneur. We're still own at least a large chunk or majority of this company. That's the QSIP. And so it used to be bigger than what it is now because of, fintechs have come in and
Yeah.
kind of blown some of that up. But, there was a time where QSIPs were huge, and that was a big way that it created entrepreneurship within banking and credit union area.
Oh,
Was
wow. Cool.
exactly what you're talking about doing. So
That's cool.
I'm
I
with
hadn't
that.
heard about that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. That's awesome.
Good.
That's awesome.
Good.
In terms of working with your customers, what industries do you tend to work with when you're bringing on customers? What size business do they need to be? Walk me a little bit through their profile.
Yeah. So for our customer support team, the ones that do live chat sales, text sales, and then live chat support, text support, and email. So we
Yeah.
don't do any phone calls. All my team is digital because they're actually all hired to be phenomenal writers. That's the
Yeah.
one thing that each of my apprentices they get tested on is like, can you write really well? Because they have to be able to write as content writers eventually.
Right. Exactly.
So my team are amazing writers. We focus primarily on e-commerce, companies that have e-commerce that don't want to build their own customer support team. And we can start off with pretty much any size company as long as they've got some business,
Sure.
because we do it on volume. So if they've got a low amount of volume, our price goes down.
Sure.
As their volume grows, so does our cost. So then therefore they get charged more.
Sure.
So e-commerce is one. If you don't want to grow your own customer support team, or you have somebody on customer support and you don't want to be growing that, or you want to free them up, maybe that's you.
Sure.
We're probably a really good option. Healthcare companies are another one that love us because there's so much healthcare that has to be provided right now, especially.
Sure.
This last quarter, just to give you an idea, the size of my company doubled in one quarter. The
Wow.
entire annual revenues doubled
Good
because
grief.
of COVID.
Yeah.
So like e-commerce companies went through the roof, and so did healthcare.
Yeah.
So if you're a healthcare company, this is like whether you're orthodontist or a pain clinic or you name it, right? We have birth control clinics, we have all hospitals, we have all these healthcare because it's HIPAA compliance. And so we understand e-com inside and out, and we also understand HIPAA,
Yeah.
which is the privacy confidentiality inside of healthcare. So those are really like the two that we provide a lot of support for. There's
Yeah.
of course plenty of other kinds of companies, and then we do a lot of personal branding for really high level executives or entrepreneurs. But I would say entrepreneurs that are definitely over $1 million in revenue.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because the brand itself is going to help generate sales, but you already have to have had sales to afford this. We're talking about $3,000 a month,
Yeah.
right? So if you're going to invest $3,000 a month, your business model needs to attract clients that can pay for that
Yeah.
easily,
Absolutely.
right?
No, it
So
makes sense. Yeah.
that's
No,
what we
definitely.
do.
Yeah. Definitely
And
makes sense.
and I know we got to wrap up in a bit, but can I make
Yeah.
one suggestion to the audience? If you were
No,
feeling
please.
any of this, text me at this number real quick. I'm going to give you a text line, okay?
Yeah.
Text me at 646-495-9867. Again, 646-495-9867, and just text the words "feel me flow." Feel space me space flow. Feel me flow.
Yeah.
Text me that. For the first 3 people that text me, well, first of all, you're going to get to hear from me personally, but I'll give autographed copies of my best-selling book called Bling. I'll autograph copies and send them to your audience members. The first 3 people that'll do that.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about my book. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about my album, but
Yeah.
I have a best-selling book about a rapper who goes on a spiritual journey, and I made a soundtrack for that book.
Oh, wow.
The book is called Bling under Andy
Bling.
Seth. Yeah.
Okay.
And my album is under my artist name, Alove, A-L-U-V.
Okay.
It's on Spotify, Tidal, whatever, everywhere, YouTube.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we're gonna
and
make
so-
sure in the show notes, MYB, you'll be able to see and pull those right up. So I want to
Cool.
make sure that those are that information's in the show notes.
Perfect,
And then,
perfect.
What's that phone number one more time?
Yeah,
646
646-495-9867.
9867. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Perfect.
And for anybody that's interested in looking, like getting more information just from me, I publish weekly free content. Like I write prolifically. This is what I do. So
Yeah.
go to andyseth.com or just text me at that number and type "Feel Me Flow" and you'll go into my email list. But that's a great way to keep up with me. And I love hearing from audience fans. I love getting messages from people that tell me about what resonated with them or if they have questions. Like this is what I love. And if you're interested in my company, if there's services we can provide for you, or people, like my story now. So if you know
Yeah.
people that fit who we're working with, like go tell them our story. My website is feelmeflow.com.
Yes.
And if you're a hip hop head, that's a Naughty by Nature song.
Right, exactly. I was going to ask you, did that have any influence on the
Damn right.
domain name?
Yeah. I had to tweet at Tretch and I was like, "Hey, don't sue me for this." But
Right. Did he respond or did?
nah.
Oh, okay. He still saw it though.
Which to me meant we're good.
Yeah, he's good. Right. Exactly. Andy Seth is our
Tretch, if
guest
you're
today.
listening.
Right. Exactly. You get on the soundtrack too, Tretch.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
No doubt.
Andy Seth is our guest today, CEO of Flow Marketing. Listen, Andy, this has been tremendous, man. I want to continue our conversation. I know we're recording, on time here for the podcast, but man, I want to, continue the conversation. There's some folks that I want to connect you with that are kind of in your space, kind of here around this Memphis area and maybe even beyond that. You just never know how connections can prove beneficial and multi-directional ways. So I want to do that, man. Listen, best wishes to you and your family. Through everything that's going on and then beyond, man. Keep doing what you're doing, brother, man. It's inspirational for me to hear what you're doing with young people and providing them an opportunity, man. That's and extending maybe what you didn't have coming up, man. That's right up our alley of what I do, man, and what many other people that are listening to this podcast probably echo those sentiments. So
Yeah, I appreciate it.
thank you so much, man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Yep, no doubt. We'll be in touch.
All
Listen,
right.
Andy Seth, thank you so much, man. Go be great, and we'll talk again soon, brother.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. All right, MYB, that was Andy Seth, CEO of Flow Marketing. Go to the show notes. Make sure that you do that. Let him know that you heard him right here on the Minding Your Business podcast, episode 170. As he said, he'd love to hear from you, and do that. Make sure you connect. That's a way that you can help grow. You never know what opportunities can come when you connect with people. So just reach out, connect, send them a positive word, positive message, ask a few questions that you may have that maybe we didn't get to. And, again, that's a way for us all to grow. All right. A couple quick things before we get out of here. Brand Pod, amplify your brand's voice. That's something you need to do. Now is the time. I had banks reach out to me, as y'all know, about launching their own podcast. I didn't have any platform for doing that other than them listening to this podcast. And they said, Ron, what the hell do? We closed all our branches and we're not going to see our customers for a long time. And there's only so many emails that people are going to open. And they want to know how to launch their own podcast. So what did I do? I said, shit, I had to go put together a whole company so I could have a platform because they're ready to pay me. All right. So I call them back and I've helped them launch podcasts. I've got another one that's going to be launching here in 2 weeks from today on the CRA side. And so you need to launch your own podcast brand. Listen, all your targeted customers, people who would shop and buy with you are not all on your social media timeline. So one of the reasons some of your businesses don't grow is because you're waiting for Susie Q, who's been following you on Facebook since 2010, who won't buy anything from you, and that's only going to like your pictures of the baby and your pictures of your vacation. But when you post your business, you can't find her, right? You can't find Sam, right? It's because you haven't tapped into who your actual target audience is. You've got to do that. One way to do that is through your own podcast. Own your content. Remember those terms and conditions that you read when you signed on to Twitter and Facebook? Hell no, you don't, because you didn't read them. Neither did I. But what it said in there for the digital real estate companies that they are, they own that content when you post it. All right. Own your own content. All right. Facebook owns that content. They can do whatever the hell they want with it. And they do. So own your content. Okay. Go to brandyourpod.com. I'd love to help you. I'm your podcast partner. I will help you do that. Do I have all the answers? No, I don't. We'll find them together. All right. But you need to own your own platform. So let's do that. Okay. The online directory is available. Minding Your Business directory. That's at themybpodcast.com/team. You should be a part of the directory. That directory is going out to my entire network by email and social media and 11 state banking associations that I'm an endorsed vendor with. I will tell you, 95% of banks in the state are members of the State Banking Association. They've been doing a lot of PPP loans. They get fees for that. What are they doing with that money? Not a lot open, right? They're looking for places to spend money. They should be spending it with you. Get in the directory. themybpodcast.com/team. You can be a part of the directory. $240 for the year, $30 a month. Whatever your choice is, select an option and let me get you in front of those people. I've been a banker almost 18 years. You want to know how many people look like me are endorsed? I'll let you take a wild guess. Whatever you said, you were probably wrong, unless you said zero. So let's work together and let's get you a part of that. Be a part of the directory. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. We're going to be back for episode 171, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. This is the Minding Your Business podcast. Thanks again to Andy Seth, CEO of Flow Marketing, for joining us again. We look forward to remaining connected with him. Remember, there's 3 things that we all have in common, folks, no matter how we look in the mirror. We all want to be better for ourselves, better for our families, and better for our communities. Remember that with every person that you interact with, and this world will be great. Yeah, we don't have to divide by color, whether that's black or white, red or green, or blue and red, right? 3 things that we all want. Remember that. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast.